The bass line rippled through the soles of my cheap heels, shaking its way up my spine like a warning I was too numb to feel. I gripped my watery cocktail like it was the last anchor tethering me to the present. The club was dark, thick with perfume and secrets, every pulse of the lights warping faces into masks. No one looked real in here, least of all me. 3 months since the breakup. 3 months since I caught Anthony, my boyfriend of 2 years, in bed with the kind of girl you only find on Instagram filters and luxury resort flyers. The kind of girl who didn't shop at discount outlets or work double shifts at a diner to afford rent. I came here tonight not to party, not to dance, but to not think. But that plan shattered the second I saw him, Anthony, laughing at the bar with her. The new girl. Blonde, fake tanned, barely dressed, and perched on his lap like she belonged there. My stomach twisted, humiliation flaring like a rash under my skin. I should have walked out. I should have finished my drink and ghosted before he saw me, but something rooted me in place. I don't know if it was petty pride or just old-fashioned heartbreak. Probably both. Then his eyes met mine across the crowd, and he smirked. That smirk, the same one he gave me the first night we met, drunk on charm and empty promises. Now he wore it like a trophy, lips curling against his glass as his new toy whispered something in his ear. He didn't break eye contact, didn't flinch, just looked straight at me and smirked like he'd already won. A sick, hollow heat built in my chest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to claw that smug look off his face. Instead, I whispered to no one, "I should have picked another bar." That obvious, is it? The voice cut through the beat of the music, low and smooth, with a subtle foreign accent I couldn't place. Maybe Spanish. Maybe danger, I turned. And looked up. The man beside me wasn't like the usual club crowd. He didn't sway or shout or check his phone. He stood still. Too still. Like he didn't belong. Like he was only here because he chose to be. He wore a suit, charcoal gray, tailored so well it didn't wrinkle even under the club's sticky humidity. No tie, just a black shirt unbuttoned at the collar, revealing a gold chain that winked against olive skin. His dark hair was neatly slicked back, his jaw sharp, clean-shaven, and tense, but it was his eyes that got me. Black, bottomless, unblinking. I swallowed. Sorry. I didn't mean to talk out loud. You're not the only one thinking it. His gaze flicked toward the bar, where Anthony was now whispering in Barbie's ear, fingers tracing the curve of her bare thigh. His voice dropped. That him? I nodded. Ex-boyfriend. His eyes narrowed slightly. Looks more like a boy than a man. The corner of my mouth twitched. The first sign of a smile in days. He thinks he's both. Would you like to prove him wrong? My eyes snapped to his. What do you mean? He extended a hand. Long fingers, calloused palm. Not soft like a banker. More like a man who'd had to build something with his bare hands. Or break it. Dance with me, he said. Let him see what he gave up. It was stupid. It was reckless. But it was also the first thing that felt right all night. Are you sure? I asked, heart pounding. I don't even know your name. He smiled, not with his mouth, but with his eyes. Tonight, you don't need to. I hesitated for only a second longer before slipping my hand into his. The contact sent a shock through me, firm, warm, steady. He led me to the dance floor, parting the crowd without effort. People moved for him, not out of politeness, out of instinct. As his hand settled at the small of my back, guiding me into rhythm with the beat, I felt the weight of Anthony's stare burning between my shoulder blades. I didn't have to look to know he was watching. What's your name? I asked again, voice breathless from the movement. The man leaned down, his mouth close to my ear. Raphael. There was something dangerous about the way he said it. Something final? Raphael, what? I pushed, emboldened by the way his hand rested against the curve of my waist, not possessive, but deliberate. He paused. Let's just say, people who know my last name tend to behave better. A chill rippled across my skin, and I suddenly knew. Whatever I'd just stepped into, whatever this was, it wasn't a game. And Raphael wasn't just a handsome stranger at a nightclub. He was something else. Something darker. Something powerful, and I'd just asked him to dance. Raphael moved like a man used to control, not just over his own body, but over the room, the people, the tempo of life itself. His hand barely moved at my back, but somehow it commanded me. guided me through the shifting crowd like he was rearranging the atmosphere around us. I didn't feel like I was dancing. I felt like I was being danced with. My heart thudded in my chest. The music a distant pulse compared to the blood roaring in my ears. His scent was intoxicating, something woody, expensive, and laced with danger. I risked a glance toward the bar. Anthony was glaring. His arm had slid off his new girl's shoulder. She said something, pouting, but he didn't hear it. His entire focus was locked on me and Raphael. Good, I smiled. Not because I was trying to make him jealous anymore. That feeling had already faded into something colder. This wasn't about revenge. Not anymore. This was a reclamation. Of dignity. Of presence. Of myself. "You're smiling," Raphael murmured against my ear, his voice low and amused. "Don't get used to it," I replied, tilting my head just enough to meet his gaze. "I've had a bad month, I can tell," he said. "Only women who've been lied to, cheated on, and betrayed smile like that." The words hit harder than I expected, like he'd just reached in and read the pages I hadn't shown anyone. "How would you know?" I asked, my breath catching slightly. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Because I've made that smile disappear before." My breath hitched. "You're being honest about being dangerous." "No," he said. "I'm being honest about being honest. Dangerous comes later. That should have made me walk off the floor. Should have sent me fleeing through the back exit, heels in hand, swearing to delete my number and change my name. Instead, it made me lean into him just a little more." He noticed. "Of course he noticed. I can see why he's watching you," Raphael said, turning us so that Anthony now had a full view of us. "You shine, even when you don't mean to." I rolled my eyes. "That's a poetic way of saying I look desperate." "No," he said simply. "It's the way men like him convince women like you to forget your worth." That shut me up, because he was right. Anthony didn't just cheat on me. He erased me, piece by piece. He took my light and replaced it with his own reflection until I forgot what I looked like without him. Raphael spun me sharply, then caught me against him again, his arm around my waist now firm and anchoring. The kind of grip that made me forget where I was, or who I'd been. I exhaled, shaky. "So what are you then? The dark stranger who shows up right when I'm about to fall apart?" "I'm the man who notices," he said, his gaze steady. "Not the kind who asks what's wrong just so I can use the answer against you." God, that landed like a gut punch, because Anthony had done exactly that. He asked about my father's death, my money problems, my insecurities. Then later, in every argument, threw them at me like weapons he'd stored up just to cut deeper. "You don't know me," I said, trying to maintain some grip on reality. "I'm not someone who gets rescued." "I'm not here to rescue you," Raphael said, his voice soft but sharp. "I'm here to remind you you didn't need saving to begin with." And that's when Anthony started walking toward us. I felt it before I saw it. The shift in energy, the sudden awareness in Raphael's posture, his hand adjusting slightly on my back. "Protective now." "Let me handle it," I whispered, eyes still on Anthony's approach. "Are you sure?" "No, not at all. But I'd be damned if I ran now," I nodded. "Yes." Anthony stopped 2 feet from us, drunk anger simmering in his eyes. He ignored Raphael entirely, his first mistake, and looked right at me. "You're making a fool of yourself," he spat. "No," I said calmly. "I just realized I'm not yours to fool anymore." His lip curled. "So what? You hook up with some rich douche because I moved on?" "I didn't hook up with anyone," I said. "I danced." Which, by the way, doesn't cost $400 in hotel room service and fake apologies. His jaw clenched. "You always were dramatic." And before I could respond, Raphael stepped in. Slowly, deliberately. "She's not being dramatic," he said. "She's being merciful. If I were in her shoes, I wouldn't waste this conversation on you." Anthony's eyes flicked to Raphael for the first time. And in that exact moment, everything shifted. The smirk vanished. The arrogance drained. Something in Raphael's face, his stillness, maybe, or the flat calm in his voice, changed the air. "Who the hell are you?" Anthony muttered, already sounding less sure. Raphael smiled. But it didn't reach his eyes. "No one you want to owe money to." Anthony laughed too loud. Too forced. "Is this supposed to scare me?" "No," Raphael said, stepping slightly forward. "Not yet." I reached for Raphael's arm. "He's not worth it." Correct, Raphael said, never taking his eyes off Anthony. Which is why this conversation is over. He turned to me. Let's get some air. I nodded, and Raphael slid his hand around mine again. As we walked past Anthony, he said nothing. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. I could feel the tremble in him, like an animal that had just realized it had wandered into a predator's den. Outside, the air was cool, sharp, and a million miles away from the thick tension inside. I leaned against the brick wall, my pulse still racing. I'm sorry, I said quietly. That wasn't fair to drag you into. I said quietly. That wasn't fair to drag you into. Raphael looked at me. The streetlights caught in his eyes like tiny reflections of fire. You didn't drag me anywhere, he said. I stepped in because I wanted to. That kind of man, the ones who tear you down just to make themselves taller, they're not new to me. What are you? I whispered, not meaning to say it out loud. He smiled. This time it did reach his eyes. But it was the kind of smile that made my skin prickle. Let's just say, I deal in balance, he said. And your ex was tipping the scales. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The street buzzed with life. Cars passing, music leaking from inside, voices drifting. And then Raphael said, almost too softly to hear, Would you like to finish the night somewhere quieter? My heart thudded once. This was the moment. The crossroads, go home. Return to safety, or follow this man with shadows in his voice and danger in his gaze into something I couldn't yet name. I met his eyes. Okay, I said. Let's go. His car was already waiting outside. Not idling at the curb like a ride share. Waiting, engine humming low, jet black, windows tinted dark enough to swallow light. The kind of vehicle you didn't just own, but commanded. Raphael opened the back door for me himself. Not like a gentleman. More like a man who never let someone else do anything he could control. I slid in, my heartbeat quickening as I sank into butter-soft leather. The scent of expensive cologne and something darker. Gunmetal, maybe. Danger, definitely. Settling around me like a second skin. He followed, shutting the door behind him. The driver didn't speak. Didn't even glance back. He simply eased into motion with the fluidity of someone who knew every possible destination. And every possible escape route. Raphael leaned back, arms stretched along the seat behind me. His fingers grazing my shoulder in a way that felt completely casual and yet not at all accidental. You're quiet, he said after a few blocks of silence. I'm thinking. About? I turned to face him. His features were unreadable in the low light, but I could still feel the weight of his gaze. Who the hell are you? I asked bluntly. He smiled like he'd been waiting for that question all night. You don't waste time. I don't have much of it to waste. He studied me for a moment, then said, I own businesses. Some clean, some complicated. Complicated like what? Laundering? Protection rackets? Import-export where no one asks what's being imported or exported? He didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Complicated like keeping the city in check, he said softly. Making sure the monsters stay under their rocks. Ensuring people who hurt women like you pay their debts, with interest. His hand slid from my shoulder to my wrist, slow and deliberate. Complicated like knowing your ex-boyfriend has a private savings account in Panama, he continued. A fake tax return from 2 years ago, and a growing habit of borrowing money from people he doesn't understand. I froze. How do you know that? Because I had someone look into him. The moment I saw the way he looked at you. Men like that? They leave patterns. You had me investigated? I whispered, part of me already knowing the answer. He didn't apologize. He didn't explain. I like to understand what I'm stepping into, he said. And more importantly, who I'm stepping in for. I should have pulled away. Should have felt invaded, violated, terrified. But I didn't. Because despite the icy realization crawling up my spine, I also remembered the way Anthony's eyes had widened the second he heard the name. Who are you? I asked again. Not your title. Not your businesses. You. He looked out the window, his voice lower now. More thoughtful. I'm the man who got tired of watching the world reward cowards. The man who built his own system when the one I was born into failed me. Then he turned back, eyes on mine. I'm Raphael Lucero. And you, Ella, just danced your way into a life most people only hear about in whispered stories. My heart stuttered. Should I be scared? He leaned in. Just enough that I felt the heat of him. the weight of his presence tightening the air between us. "No," he said. "Because the moment you asked me to dance, I decided you were mine." "And what's mine?" His hand cupped the side of my face, his thumb brushing just under my lip. "Doesn't get hurt." The car turned suddenly, slowing into a private driveway behind a steel gate. We passed under a wall of cameras and floodlights that clicked on, one by one, like eyes tracking our arrival. And still, I didn't look away from him. He hadn't kissed me. He hadn't even leaned close enough to. But I felt owned, seen, protected, like the chaos of my life had suddenly narrowed to a single point. Him. The car stopped. The driver exited. The rear door opened. I stepped out into the shadows of the mansion's towering exterior. No number on the door, no visible security. Just polished stone, black glass, and the eerie sense that once I walked in, I wouldn't be walking out the same woman. "Last chance," Raphael said behind me, his voice unreadable. "To ask for a ride home? To forget all this," I turned, met his eyes, and said the words that would change everything. I didn't come this far to leave scared. His smile was slow, dangerous, proud, good, he murmured, offering his hand. Because now the real night was about to begin. The house swallowed sound like a church built for sin. No creaking floors. No buzzing lights. No echo of footsteps. Just silence, thick, luxurious, and dangerous. The kind of silence only found in places where power didn't have to announce itself. Raphael led me through a wide hallway lit by soft sconces and guarded by doors I didn't dare peek behind. The air smelled faintly of leather, aged scotch, and something sharper beneath it. Steel, maybe? Or blood. We reached a vast open room, a living space if you could call it that. Glass walls faced the city, glittering in the distance like a kingdom waiting to be claimed. A single fireplace crackled along one side, low and steady, and in the middle of it all, a single table. Already set. For two. I thought we were just getting air, I said quietly, trying to hide the shake in my voice. Raphael turned, unbuttoning his jacket as he watched me. "We still are. It's just fresher up here." He walked toward the table, nodding toward one of the chairs. "Sit." It wasn't a command. But it wasn't a suggestion either. I sat. A man I hadn't even seen slipped out of a side door, placing 2 plates in front of us without a word. Medium rare steak, seared vegetables, and a sauce so rich it looked like molten velvet. No menus. No options, just... This Raphael waited until the man left, then poured 2 glasses of deep red wine, placing one in front of me without asking. "I don't usually bring people here," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "Because you don't date, or because most of them don't leave?" He smiled darkly. "Both. We ate." Silence wrapped around us again, thick but not awkward. Every now and then I caught his eyes on me, assessing, calculating. Like he was measuring something in me that had nothing to do with my body and everything to do with my soul. "What do you want from me?" I asked finally. "And don't tell me a dance again." He wiped his mouth, laid his knife down, and leaned back. "I want someone real," he said. "In my world, that's rarer than loyalty. Rarer than silence. Rarer than life," I laughed, bitter, automatic. "I'm a waitress at a hole-in-the-wall diner who can't afford to keep her car from stalling every 3rd day. I'm not rare. I'm replaceable," his expression hardened. "No, you're untouched by all this." He waved vaguely around him. "You walked into that club wearing pain like perfume and still looked me in the eye like I was just a man. Do you know how dangerous that makes you, Ella?" I frowned. "You're saying being unimpressed by you is a threat?" "I'm saying it's a risk. Because people like me, we don't forget the ones who see through us." He rose from his seat, walked around the table, and crouched beside me, his hand resting lightly on my thigh. "I've had women chase me for money. For fear, for thrill. But you asked me to dance. You asked nothing of me but attention. You didn't know what I was, and you still don't." "Then tell me," I said, my voice low. "Tell me what you are," he tilted his head. "You sure you want that answer tonight?" I nodded. He leaned in, his voice a whisper. "I run everything from here to the water. Ports, logistics, contracts. Some legal, some not. I pay judges. I own debt. I remove problems." His breath grazed my cheek. "I've had people killed, Ella. People who crossed lines. Who took things they shouldn't. Who touched people who didn't belong to them. The silence after was suffocating. "I've never hurt an innocent," he continued, voice sharp now. "But I am not clean. I never pretended to be." And there it was. The line, drawn in black marble with blood instead of chalk. "Why tell me all that?" I asked. "You think that's going to make me want you more?" "No," he said simply. "I think it gives you a choice." My heart pounded. "What kind of choice?" My heart pounded. "What kind of choice?" He stood again, stepping back from me, his expression unreadable. "To leave now, walk out of here, and never hear from me again. Or to stay, to know what I am and still choose to be in my life. No lies, no masks, just truth." The implication hung in the air like a loaded weapon. It wasn't just about danger, it was about belonging to a man who didn't do halfway. "You're offering me your world," I said quietly. "I'm offering you mine," he confirmed. "But I won't drag you into it. You'll have to walk in willingly." I stood, took one step toward him, then another. And when I reached him, I looked up, heart racing, voice barely steady. "And if I stay, what happens to me?" His hand came to my face again, thumb brushing the edge of my jaw. "Then Ella," he whispered, "you stop surviving. And you start being protected." I didn't answer right away. My body was close to his. My heart was punching through my ribs like it wanted out. But my mind, the part of me that still clung to reason, was screaming questions I didn't have the courage to ask. What kind of girl agrees to be protected by a man who just admitted he's had people killed? What kind of woman hears those words and leans closer? Apparently, me. Apparently, tonight. Because when Raphael leaned in, so close I could taste his breath, wine, warmth, and sin, I didn't pull away. I whispered, "Then protect me," and I meant it. Not just from my ex, not just from the world, but from myself. From the version of me that always chose the safest option, the version that got betrayed and discarded and still said thank you for the trauma. Raphael didn't kiss me. Not yet. Instead, he stepped back like it took everything in him not to devour me right there on the polished floor. "Follow me," he said, voice low. He didn't touch me again. Didn't even look back to see if I obeyed. He just walked down a hallway of shadow and steel, and I followed him, barefoot now, heels discarded somewhere between sanity and surrender. We passed another security door. Fingerprint and retinal scan. No number pad. No keyhole. This wasn't a house. This was a fortress. Inside, the space opened into something I wasn't prepared for. A room of glass cases, black velvet pedestals, and locked drawers. A vault. Not for money. For secrets. "I wasn't born rich," Raphael said, moving toward one of the cases, his hand brushing over a glass lid that held a small silver cross, tarnished and cracked. "This world made me earn it, claw it, bleed for it." He turned back to me, something unguarded in his eyes now. "You asked who I am. This is who I am." I stepped closer. "And what is this place?" He opened one of the drawers and removed a thin black folder, handing it to me. "Proof," I hesitated. "Proof of what?" "That your ex-boyfriend Anthony Ward wasn't just a cheating piece of garbage. He's also an informant. He sold names, Ella, he handed people over. Men I protected, families for cash." I opened the folder. Bank statements, photos, transcripts, names, my name, my father's name. I staggered back a step. "Why would he?" Raphael's voice was cold. "Because he thought no one would find out. Because cowards like him always think they're the smartest ones in the room." I stared down at my own face in one of the photos. Grainy, zoomed in, taken from behind some windshield or hidden corner. My hands were full of grocery bags, oblivious, vulnerable. "I didn't even know you were collateral," Raphael said. "He gave you up without a second thought. The second I saw your name on that list, I knew." My stomach dropped. "Knew what?" "That I wasn't going to let you go." I looked up at him then, and for the first time since this whirlwind began, I understood something terrifying. Raphael Lucero hadn't chosen me because I was beautiful, or broken, or bold. He'd chosen me because I'd been marked, because I'd been threatened. And Raphael didn't let people threaten what was his. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Because I needed you to look at me and choose. Not because you were scared. Not because you felt cornered, but because you wanted to stay." I swallowed hard. "So now what?" "I'm what? Part of your world?" He walked toward me. slowly, carefully, like I was something precious. "You're under my name now," he said, which means if someone touches you, even tries to, they sign their death warrant. He lifted my hand, pressing his lips to my knuckles. But more than that, he whispered, "You're under my watch now. And no one gets through me." My breath caught. My past life, the broke waitress, the girl standing outside clubs crying over garbage men and designer cologne, she was dead. I felt it. I didn't belong to Anthony anymore. I didn't belong to heartbreak. I didn't even belong to the girl I'd been 3 hours ago. Raphael had just handed me something I didn't recognize. Something dangerous. Something addictive. Power, and the worst part? I liked it. The next morning came like a slap instead of sunlight. My phone buzzed at 7:03 a.m. sharp. I was in Raphael's bed, tangled in linen sheets softer than anything I'd ever slept on, but I hadn't closed my eyes all night. I couldn't. Not with everything that had been revealed. Not with the image of Anthony's smug face, now twisted in my mind into something venomous. Not with the sound of Raphael's voice still in my ear. "You're under my name now." The phone buzzed again. Unknown number. But the message lit a cold fire in my chest. "You think you're safe now, huh, princess? Tell Raphael he doesn't scare me. Let's see how much he protects when you're the one bleeding." I stared at it, hands trembling. Anthony. It had to be. Coward that he was, he wouldn't face Raphael directly. He'd come for me, the way weak men always do when they can't beat the stronger one. I climbed out of bed, grabbed the phone, and slipped out of the room. The hall was silent. Marble floors, massive windows, the whole place still cloaked in the hush of dawn. I found Raphael in the glass-walled kitchen, already dressed in a dark shirt and slacks, sipping espresso like he hadn't just turned my entire life inside out the night before. He looked up, reading my expression instantly. "What is it?" I tossed the phone on the counter. He texted me, his jaw flexed once. No shock, no curse. Just that still. Heavy silence that meant something was going to break. He picked up the phone, read the message, and let out a quiet breath. "He's dumber than I thought. What do we do?" I asked, my voice barely holding steady. Raphael looked at me. Really looked at me, like he was checking if I was ready for what came next. And apparently, I passed whatever test he silently gave, because his voice changed. "He doesn't get warnings anymore," Raphael said. "He gets a message." 2 hours later, I was in a tinted SUV with a man named Dario, Raphael's right hand. He was broad, ex-military, probably ex-something worse, and spoke only in sentences sharp enough to cut your throat. "Stay here," Dario said when we stopped in front of a sad, peeling apartment building, Anthony's place. Not the new condo he bragged about, not the hotel room he used to cheat on me. His real place. The one no one knew about, except Raphael. I sat in the back seat, pulse thudding in my ears, while Dario climbed the stairs like a ghost. No noise, no wasted movement. I shouldn't have gone. I shouldn't have asked to come, but I had to see it. I had to see what Raphael's protection really meant. 10 minutes later, Dario came back, calm, no scratches. He opened the door and handed me something, a phone. Anthony's phone, and a photo. My blood turned cold. It was Anthony, sitting in his cheap kitchen chair. Not tied up, not hurt, just sobbing. The caption under the photo was written in Raphael's handwriting. I recognized it instantly. "Next time it's your hands, no signature. No threat, just a promise." Dario started the car without a word. "Is he okay?" I asked quietly, ashamed at the flicker of pity in my chest. Dario gave a humorless grunt. He'll piss himself every time he hears a knock for the next 5 years. And somehow, that felt worse than if they'd beaten him. They didn't need to break his bones. They broke his certainty. They shattered that arrogant, untouchable shellmen like Anthony wear their whole lives, and they did it for me. Later that night, back at Raphael's, I stood on his balcony overlooking the city. I felt different. Not just scared. Not just protected, changed. He came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist, and kissed the top of my shoulder. "I told you," he whispered. "What's mine doesn't get hurt." I leaned back into him, the truth hitting me like a drug. I wasn't afraid anymore. But I should have been. Because the moment you let someone like Raphael protect you, You stop belonging to yourself. The next day felt too quiet. Even with the buzz of Raphael's people moving through the house like shadows, even with the endless city noise far below, something off clung to the air. Raphael knew it. I could see it in his eyes. The way they scanned every window like a sniper might be behind it. The way he read every incoming message with his jaw locked tight. "Something's wrong," I said, sitting across from him at the long glass table that passed for a dining room. He didn't deny it. He set his phone down slowly, eyes never leaving mine. "I told you Anthony was stupid," he said. What I didn't expect was who he was stupid with. My throat tightened. Who? Someone I should have buried 6 months ago. He slid a photo across the table. 2 men. One was Anthony. The other? Bald, scar above his eyebrow. A smug face that screamed violence. The name printed under it, Nico Salvatore. Who is he? I asked. Raphael leaned back. A traitor. Used to run jobs for me. Got greedy. Tried to skim. When I caught him, he ran. I let him live because I thought he was too small to matter. He tapped the photo. Apparently, I was wrong. I stared at the picture. So what happens now? Raphael's eyes darkened. Now, I clean up the mess. And you disappear. What? I said, heart punching into my ribs. I'm sending you away, Ella. Somewhere safe. This isn't up for debate. I stood, the chair scraping hard against the floor. So I'm just supposed to run? Hide while you go to war? He stood too, at fast. This isn't a war, not yet. It's a cleanup job. You've been seen. That message to Anthony? It didn't scare him enough. It exposed you. I don't care, I shouted. I'm not afraid of them. I'm not. You should be, he snapped, slamming his hand on the table. The room went dead silent. I'd never heard him raise his voice before. Not once, not to me, but this wasn't anger. It was fear. His own kind. The quiet kind men like him don't know how to show. He stepped forward, took my face in his hands like I might shatter. They don't fight like me, Ella. They don't make rules. They take what they want. Burn everything else. If they think hurting you breaks me, they'll try. Tears burned behind my eyes. I didn't cry, not yet. But I wanted to. I don't want to run, I whispered. Not from this. Not from you. You're not running, he said. You're waiting. Until I make sure no one touches what's mine. That night I was moved. Quietly. No goodbye kisses. No drawn-out drama, just a small black car. A quiet woman in a leather coat who didn't speak much English. And an address somewhere far outside the city. The house I was taken to wasn't a safe house. It was a prison in disguise. White fences. Polished floors. Cameras hidden in corners. Guards who smiled but didn't blink. And every hour that passed, every breath I took without Raphael, felt like I was unraveling. 3 nights later, it happened. The storm. Not outside, but inside Raphael's empire. I didn't hear it directly. I wasn't supposed to, but I'd made a habit of listening when I wasn't meant to, and I caught it from the guard outside my door. A call, brief, panicked. They hit the port. 3 dead. Nico's crew. Left a note. What did it say? It said, "We're coming for your queen." Queen. Me. I couldn't breathe. I pushed open the door. The guard tried to stop me. I shoved him. I want to speak to Raphael, now. But Raphael didn't answer his phone. Didn't send a message. Didn't call me back, and that silence said everything. Something had happened. Something big. I paced the room like a caged animal for hours. Every noise outside the window made me jump. And then, at 3:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Not a message, a video. I opened it. The screen flickered. A man tied to a chair, blood soaking his shirt, face swollen, breathing ragged, Anthony, behind him, a blurred face, but I recognized the voice. Nico Salvatore. Raphael Lucero, he said, calm and cruel. You should have finished what you started. Since you like playing hero, let's see how fast you can save your little dancer. The camera turned, and suddenly, my face was on the screen. Not live. Not present. But a photo, one taken just a day earlier, in this house, on this property. My blood went cold. Nico knew where I was. Which meant someone had talked. Which meant I was not safe anymore. The night I saw my own photo in Nico's hands was the night I stopped waiting to be protected. Something inside me shifted, broke. Not In fear, but in fury, I wasn't. Raphael's queen because he guarded me like gold. I was his queen because I'd been forged in betrayal, rebuilt from scars, and now they were threatening to burn me down again. Not this time. I sent the video to Raphael. No caption, no crying emojis, just the file. 30 seconds later, his name lit up my screen. I answered with a dry throat and shaking hands. Ella. His voice didn't sound like it did before. There was no flirt, no edge, just pure steel. You okay? He asked. I'm still breathing, I said. But someone here isn't on your side. He got the photo. From this house. Silence, then colder than frostbite. I know, you know. I snapped. Then why the hell? Because I needed confirmation. And now we have it. Raphael, I'm on my way. Then he hung up. Just like that. No plan, no promises. But something told me, when Raphael said he was coming, the city would shake beneath him. An hour later, I heard the sound. Not cars. Not gunfire, choppers, low, fast, close, then voices outside, raised, then screaming. Then silence. My door burst open. Not a guard. Not Dario Raphael. He wore black on black, shoulder holster, gun in one hand, fury in his face. There was blood on his knuckles. Come with me, he said. I didn't argue. He grabbed my hand, pulled me through the hallway like a storm, past a body slumped in the corner. One of the guards. The traitor, maybe. I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. Outside, the air was sharp with gunpowder and burnt rubber. A convoy of black SUVs waited behind a wall of armed men. Raphael shoved me into the back seat, climbed in after me, and gave one look to Dario, who was already at the wheel. Portside warehouse, he ordered. Now. 20 minutes later, we were at the edge of the city, near the docks. Near the end of something. We didn't go in through the front. We circled to the back, metal doors, locked tight, guarded by two of Raphael's men. Inside, the warehouse was dark except for a single pool of light, and in that light, Anthony, tied to a chair again. But this time he was alive, barely. Face covered in blood, lips split, shaking hard. When he saw me, he flinched. Not in guilt. In fear, I stopped just in front of him. You told them where I was. He coughed, blood spitting down his chin. They said they'd kill me if I didn't. Good, Raphael said, stepping beside me, his gun now drawn. Because I was planning to kill you anyway, Anthony sobbed. Please, please, I didn't mean to get her hurt. You sold her, Raphael said, voice like death in silk. Like she was just another thing to trade for time. No, Shut up. Raphael turned to me. You want me to do it? He asked, or do you? I stared at Anthony, at the man who made me small, who took everything soft in me and taught it how to bleed. And I said, neither. Raphael raised a brow. He doesn't deserve the power of dying at our hands, I said. Let him live. Let him watch while I rise. Anthony looked confused, hopeful even. Until Raphael leaned down and whispered in his ear, you're going to spend every minute of the rest of your miserable life knowing you had the attention of a woman like her, and lost her to a man like me. Then he stood, turned to his men. Take him somewhere off the grid. Let him beg for scraps. No ID, no friends. No second chances. 2 hours later, we were back at Raphael's estate. The guards were doubled. The fences fortified. He stood in the doorway of his bedroom, watching me. You handled that better than I expected, he said. I'm not the same girl you danced with, I replied. He came to me slowly, like I might vanish. You were never that girl, Ella, he said. You were always this. You just didn't know it yet. I looked up at him. And what am I now? He didn't smile. He said, now, you're mine. And the world knows it. He kissed me then, deep, hard, claiming. But it wasn't possession. It wasn't ownership. It was recognition of power, of pain, of fire. And somewhere in the shadows of the city, enemies watched. But none dared move because now, Ella, the girl who had once cried over a cheating ex in a nightclub, wasn't just a woman anymore. She was the queen of the man even monsters feared. And in Rafael Lucero's world, that meant only one thing. She was untouchable. The end. The end.